My name is Andre Williams, and the protein that I'll be covering today is hemoglobin. In 1883, the word protein was first used. The word was only introduced over a century ago, but has been one of the key elements to make human existence possible. Proteins promote life through the many functions they perform, and a few of these proteins functions which would consist of transportation of molecules, storage of molecules, movement, and also the support. But more primarily, they serve as enzymatic catalysts, which help speed up chemical reactions. Although proteins come in various shapes and sizes, there are four levels to the protein structure that binds them all. The first level is the actual amino acid sequence, which makes up the protein. And then you have the secondary, which has more to do with hydrogen bonding, how interactions between amino acids can confer alpha helix and beta sheet conformations. The tertiary structure, on the other hand, houses the three-dimensional folded shape of the protein. And then, of course, you have the final quaternary structure, which is only seen in proteins with two or more polypeptide chains. And it defines how the polypeptide chains interact with one another. But all proteins don't necessarily have a quaternary structure. It's only with the ones with two or more polypeptide chains. And I have an illustration right here that I want to show you. And it correlates with pretty much all of the information just mentioned. The picture is kind of bad because of the camera angle, but it has on there the primary structure, which is at the bottom, and it has its amino acid sequence underneath. And then on the right hand over here, you have the alpha helix and beta sheet during the secondary structure. And then, of course, the green is the tertiary structure, and the red would be the quaternary structure. So it's just a picture to show the basic level of structures when it comes to the general protein. And despite there being copious amount of proteins, each protein is unique in its functioning. Hemoglobin, which is my protein, of course, carries oxygen from the lungs via arteries to the bodies and tissues, and to body tissues, and it transported carbon dioxide back to the lungs, ready for it to be exhaled. And that's just because CO2 becomes waste, so it needs to be exhaled. And then, it's also a protein. It's also the protein which gives red blood cells their red color. And hemoglobin is enclosed entirely in the red blood cells. So their body weight is approximately 35% hemoglobin. And then hemoglobin is actually one of the widely known proteins. It's very important. Like I said, it's essential to life, and it's practically found in all the different kingdoms. And it actually has the four different structure levels, the protein structure levels, including the quaternary structure. And I also have another picture here which breaks down the different components of hemoglobin. And this is the picture right here. Like I said, sorry for the picture being that way. You have the red blood cell, and then inside is the hemoglobin molecule, which it has, the alpha chain, the beta chain, the hemi group, the helical shape of the polypeptide chain, and it's just a great representation of the hemoglobin molecule and its different components. It's also unique because of its four structure levels. The primary level is the sequence of the amino acids, and it's linked by peptide bonds. The secondary level in hemoglobin and alpha spiral helix are glued together by hydrogen bonding. And then you have the third level in hemoglobin, which, is it's globular in shape. And then the 3D structure is actually has a name that I can't pronounce, so I'm not going to try. And then, but it's held together by hydrogen, ionic bonds, and even disulfide bridges. And the quaternary level has numerous tertiary globular structures placed together by hydrogen, ionic, and disulfide bridges in association with the inorganic ion. And then in hemoglobin, its four globular structures are held together in a pyramid shape in an iron ion. As it relates to proteins, hemoglobin, like I said, is one of the most popular proteins. I've been able to find a lot of information on it. There is a lot of information on it, and it has 4 different subunits, in which, like, the hemoglobin structure that I showed you before, it actually had its subunits in that structure, which is the alpha helix, the 2 alpha helix and 2 beta sheets. And each alpha helix and beta subunit forms a dimer. And then I also have one more picture for you. Actually, it's not the last picture, but it is the ribbon model for hemoglobin. That is the ribbon model that is commonly known. That picture is probably one of the universally used pictures for hemoglobin. And but lastly, I want to get into hemoglobin's mutation, which a mutation is simply a change in genetic information in cells. And an example of this would be the mutation, being sickle cell anemia. And this disorder is inherited from. It's an inherited form of anemia in which there are not enough healthy red blood cells to transport an acceptable amount throughout the body. So, and people that are diagnosed with sickle cell anemia make hemoglobin S, which the S stands for sickle. And the mutation results from the amino acid chain folding differently. And since it folds different, it engenders the red blood cells to be a crescent shape rather than a round shape. And of course, sickle cell anemia cannot be cured, but instead, they've been able to use different treatments to help control, the amount of pain, and relieve pain, prevent infections, and also kind of gain a better control on the disorder. And also, I have one more picture for you. This is the last picture. This picture right here is the actual amino acid sequence of hemoglobin. Researchers were able to sequence a code, and that's the code for hemoglobin. So, and finally, oxygen is one of the most essential necessities of life, and without hemoglobin, life would not exist. When the circulation of oxygen is hindered, it cannot reach its proper destinations. Death will occur. Proteins may be one of the most complex molecules, and the many different functions they can perform are uncountable. Hemoglobin is one of many proteins associated with disorders, and although hemoglobin can cause a chronic disorder, it overall affects the human population more beneficially because it's the fuel of life.